Welcome to episode 2 of Dual Boot Diaries, the weekly podcast where two longtime Windows users see if they can fully make the switch to Linux. I am one of your hosts, Adam Patrick Murray.
I'm Will Smith. Each week we go through our experiences of using Linux daily, with the whole show culminating in us deleting either Windows or Linux from our respective computers and moving on with our lives.
Yeah, and this week we're going to be talking about more install and setup stuff because, wow, it's early on in this whole journey, and I tell you what, there is still a lot of installation and configuration going on here. Especially Will, you got into some real deep stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I've noticed that you can't get enough installing. I've just installed Linux one time on my computer, and I'm pretty happy with it.
True.
But you're just like, yesterday when you came into the office, you had a pile of laptops about 4 thick, and you were like, well, I got the Linux laptops ready to go. And I was like, this isn't a hardware podcast, Adam. This is about software.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it. Before we do, though, I realized even though this is episode 2, we probably should have done this in episode 1 and maybe talk to people who don't know who we are at all and kind of, let people know who we are. Will, who are you?
I'm an old hardware person. Like, I started out reviewing video cards and stuff for Maximum PC, which was a magazine made of paper.
Ooh,
they carved up trees and sent them in the mail to people once a month. And then I started a website called Tested, where we covered other types of technology besides PC stuff. But I've been building PCs for pretty much my entire adult life at this point, and have been in and out with Linux over the years. I've spent time using different distros for extended periods of time, but it never really stuck. And I think looking at what's happening with Microsoft and Windows right now, I'm kind of stoked to dig into this. I think now is the time. I think we might be here finally. So, what about you, Adam? Who are you, and why are you famous?
So I started my journey on the creative side. So in 2008, I went to school for audio engineering because I was really big into podcasts and wanted to get into the audio side of things, and which led me to producing video, which then also led me to photography as well. I got a job at a technical training facility where I got to learn a lot more about computers. I mean, I've always been techie. My dad was in the military, the tech side of the military, and like I always took stuff apart, but it was never like a job for me. It was always been the creative side, and then the tech stuff was fun until 2015 when I got the job here at PCWorld, or IDG is the publisher of
the
PC
parent
World,
company.
The parent company. Started working at PCWorld, Macworld, TechAdvisor, TechHive, all of our brands, and had the chance to luckily work and learn under one Gordon Ma-Ung, who is well known in the CPU hardware, and just overall PC hardware community. You used to work with him at Maximum PC. I think a lot of people would know who he is. So I was the one pointing the camera and following him around and shooting all the video. And then through that, he kind of taught me, journalistic practices, how to review things, how to present on camera. And so I started to slowly do the camera stuff. And in 2016, we started the Full Nerd podcast, which was PCWorld's podcast about PC building news. And it's still going to this day. And I am now the fill-in host of that podcast. And I guess we're now expanding the Full Nerd Network to have a new podcast. This is actually the first new podcast that I've created since 2016. So,
oh wow,
this is fun times. Yeah, I was like, wait, how has it been this long? It's a little overdue. So I'm glad we're doing it. I mean, so far we're only a couple episodes in, but we've gotten some awesome feedback. All the users, especially in the Full Nerd Discord, which there's a link in the description to go join, have been super helpful. Like, man, no judgment. Everyone has just, anytime I poke in there and I'm like, hey, what the hell is this? Literally like a basic, like I ran a command on cache and then it ended and it said like 10S. And I took a photo of that and put it in Discord and was like, hey, what does this mean? They're like, oh, it ran the operation in 10 seconds. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense.
No stupid questions, Adam. Only poorly written prompts and documentation. That's the thing we've learned.
Yeah, fun stuff.
So I did a few years ago over at my other podcast, the Tech Pod.
Brad and Will made a Tech Pod.
Brad and Will made a Tech Pod. Yeah, we did a limited run arc of podcasts about open source projects, and I started kind of paying attention to a lot more open source stuff as a result of that. Because we got to talk to people who maintained like open source projects at all kind of parts of their life cycle, right? From stuff that was brand new and kind of fledgling and just figuring it out to projects that everybody knows about, like OBS and cups and, you know, stuff that everyone uses all the time, and whether they know it or not. Actually, curl, rather, not cups. Sorry, curl transfers files across the internet. It's like Microsoft sent the guy who maintained that a thing that said, "Hey, your code has run on Mars," so it's part of one of the rovers out there, right? Like, it's wild.
That's cool. Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff is just background infrastructure. But we noticed there was some things that were all the same. And one of the things that's the same that happens with open source projects, in my experience, is there's like a long period of time where like adoption is relatively flat. It's just growing a little bit at a time. And like the number of people that are contributing is relatively stable, but you get a little bit of growth. And then at some point an inflection moment happens and that adoption curve turns up, and either it's that a new feature is added that doesn't exist someplace else, or the commercial products in the same space change their pricing model so that all of a sudden they're much more expensive, or there's like they add garbage AI stuff to it, and there's any number of things that can happen. And then all of a sudden the number of people contributing and the number of people adopting it start to skyrocket. And we saw that with OBS relatively quickly because there weren't a lot of good live streaming and video capture tools on Windows at the time, and or Mac or Linux. And OBS grew really quickly. Home Assistant is one where they built a really robust plugin infrastructure to let people pretty easily write plugins that support a whole host of like smart home devices and infrastructure tools. And it wasn't until that plugin infrastructure took off and people started building plugins for it that it took off and saw that same explosive growth at that point. And I think one of the reasons we're doing this podcast right now is between Microsoft killing Windows 10 at the end of this year and the end of next year, sometime in the not too distant future, and thus orphaning every piece of hardware that doesn't have a TPM2 chip in it. Like I feel like, and also desktop Linux getting pretty good, and the work that Valve's done with Proton to make sure that games and a lot of backwards or cross compatibility stuff works with Windows. I feel like we might finally actually for real be at that inflection point for desktop Linux in a way that we haven't been every other time that we've talked about it being the year of desktop Linux for the last 25 years. So
wait, I thought this was the year. I thought 2025 was the year.
Look, I'm feeling
those other
good.
ones were not the year.
I'm feeling good
Obviously.
about it, Adam. But
obviously,
yeah. So, so that's the TLDR of like why I think this is an interesting topic and why I'm spending time learning how to use desktop Linux for the first time in 15 years.
And boy, are we spending time. I mean, we're doing stuff separately. You alluded to that a little bit. We kind of have different paths that we're going, but we're also doing a lot together.
Yeah.
Like some of it we don't want to burn on the podcast, but some of it I'm like, I need your help. Actually, that's what it is. I just need your help, in figuring some of this stuff out. So why don't we dive into the meat of it? Should I start or do you want to start on homework?
I mean, my stuff was pretty straightforward. So why don't I run through it first?
Okay. Yeah. So this is your homework from episode 1.
Yeah.
Transferring to episode 2. So recap, what were the things you were supposed to work on?
Okay. So I had 4 things on my list. I'm punting 2 of them to next week because I haven't had time to get to them yet. Because A, I helped you with some stuff, and B, one of my things ended up being actually both of my things that I did get done ended up being fairly time consuming. I wanted to get the printer at the office working because it turns out we use that a lot.
We do.
It's a big giant Xerox commercial printer. I haven't tried to set up a printer like that on Linux before. I've plugged in like photo printers and things like that, which have been pretty easy using cups before. So
what is cups? Yeah, it looks
cups
like an acronym.
Yeah, it's an acronym. It's the Linux. It's basically the Linux print infrastructure. So I don't know what that
this is all
for.
of Linux, like.
Yeah, like
regardless
OS 10
of distro.
uses cups too. They just put a pretty interface on top of it. It's the common Unix printing system. It's a modular printing system for Unix like operating systems. And it basically sets up a print server on your computer that then can connect through a variety of interfaces, including network or USB or parallel port or presumably SCSI and stuff like that, even if you're dealing with actual hardware interfaces, to any printer imaginable.
Okay.
It's wide driver support for it. It's like I said, like Apple has built a whole front end that lives on top of Cups. They may have actually replaced Cups at this point on Mac OS. Nope, it looks like Mac OS still. So we have this big giant Xerox printer. It was an enormous pain in the butt to get working. Basically, I had to go into it's always message boards with this stuff. I had to find a message board post about which version of the PostScript driver, which is there's the other. This is made more complicated by the fact that there are multiple different kinds of printer drivers for this type of printer, this type of commercial printer. So it's not like you just go to the HP website and you download your printer driver for your color photo printer, right? This is they have PostScript and they have it's acronym soup. The TLDR is that the PostScript one is the one that you needed for this particular printer. And then I had to figure out IP addresses and all that stuff, connect it to that. It took me like 2 hours.
Well, that was going to be my question. You're trying to do it over the work network.
Yeah.
How much of that was because our work network, surprise, surprise, is not very well managed? or do you think it was just Linux having a hard time talking to the printer?
It was more that this type of printer is kind of lightly supported, because I think like if you're talking about a consumer level printer, like a Brother laser that a bazillion people are going to have, the driver is more fully featured. So like,
okay.
Like the problems that I had with this, one of them was that the paper that was in the printer detected as light or economy light white paper, like light as in weight. White paper, and I in the printer driver had just chosen the default weight white paper as the paper that I wanted to use. So instead of the driver knowing, default white is in this drawer and light white is in this drawer, I had to manually set up those drawers on the printer, because like this is like a copier type printer that has like 8 different types of paper in it for different sizes and weights and colors and all that stuff, and I had to manually set all of those things in the printer driver in order for the printer to be able to say, oh, okay, I have what he's asking for and I can do this. Otherwise, it would just sit and stall in the printer queue and be like, well, he's asking for this particular type of paper at this size, which I don't think I have. So I'm just, instead of printing something even if it's wrong, I'm just going to do nothing.
Yeah, you're just like, nah, I'm going to sit here. Well, did you try to plug in... Like, because I know that printer does have a USB connection. Did you try to plug straight into it?
Oh, no, that's madness.
No, madness. Okay. You want to go over to the network. Yeah.
I mean, a work group printer, if you have to plug in a USB driver, a USB port into I assumed it didn't have a USB port, so that's my fault. But B, like, I don't want to have to go in and plug in a USB-A cable to that thing every time I want to print something. I'm going to do it over the network as God intended.
Yeah. I mean, I've had issues with that printer on the Windows side as well. Yeah. So, that, and one of the times I definitely did just load up the thing I wanted to print on a thumb drive and inserted it and printed it from there, which actually ended up working. But
I didn't know you could do that. That's wild.
I mean, if I can give a side note real quick, the more that I'm messing around with this stuff, the more I'm realizing that kind of understanding, just me personally, what open source is. Like, people literally come across stuff and then they figure out how, and then they contribute what they found from it, right? Like the more, not many people maybe have access to this printer that you're talking about, but a lot of people have access to a normal Brother printer. So all the people contributing to it there's more people contributing to the Brother printer in the kernel than this specific printer. Is that
I think that's
the right way, or?
I think that's fair. My guess, so Xerox provides PostScript drivers that are compatible with Cups on their website, right? Like they write these drivers, but a lot of, like, one of the things that a lot of open source maintainers pointed out when we were talking to him for the FOSS-Pod was actually that it's not just people writing code that are contributing, right? If you submit bug reports for open source problems that you encounter, then that's actually a huge benefit, because like often if you have like for example, we'll talk about it later with your HP laptop, but if you encounter a bug that nobody's found before and you submit a report for it with the appropriate logs and stuff, then that probably gives them the information they need to fix the problem with the hardware. And that's a huge contribution, right? Like that's an important thing to do.
And is that something you usually submit through, like where would you submit that kind of report?
Every project has a different bug support, bug recommendation, bug tracking process. A lot of them will just make their bug trackers, whether it's part of their like GitHub has bug tracking built in if people choose to use it. A lot of the other open GitHub clones, there's 3 or 4 of them that different open source projects often use. And that stuff will be built in. So you, like often this will start as you posting on a forum and a Discord and saying, hey, I'm having this problem. And then somebody who's actually working on the project will pop up and say, hey, we haven't actually seen this before. Can you submit these following things? And, and that's a huge that's an important part of the open source loop is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because I notice like a lot of times what we're doing is like Googling something and coming across somebody having the same exact thing, or I've been working on one of the laptops, setting it up, and I was Googling that, and like there was a thread that had started when the laptop shipped like over a year ago, but then like once a month somebody would go in and be like, hey, is there any update on this? And some people would be like, oh yeah, I've been using it for this, or oh no, I tried this out and it doesn't work. So yeah, it's something that I guess I've usually been more of a lurker and like trying to get the help, but you know, maybe I should start feeling more comfortable, like contributing, like, oh, hey, this is what I'm experiencing as well.
Well, and the nice thing is if the bug databases are public, then like you can look and see what the bug number is for your bug, and you can sign in with your GitHub account and star that thread. And when somebody posts a fix for it, you'll get a notification that says, hey, if you pull down the latest version, your stuff is fixed now and your thing will be working again, which is really nice.
Well, that is cool. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I just always worry that because I am literally such a noob that I wouldn't even know how to describe accurately what's happening or provide the right contextual information.
I mean, everybody and different communities are different levels of prickly about this too, right? Like some communities are really, really prickly. And like if you submit something in their forum without the appropriate logs and the configuration information and all that stuff, then they get kind of prickly with you and are a little rude. Some are super welcoming and really chill. Like I posted about the problem you were having installing Cache the other day and got an incredibly helpful response from somebody within like 6 hours that said, hey, I don't have that exact laptop, but I have a similar hardware, and here's what I did to troubleshoot that. And I think my guess is that probably the problem you were having is related to adaptive sync on that particular version of the kernel for Linux, which was like probably enough for me to fix the problem when I have access to the hardware next time. Anyway, so that's that. Now the next problem I had is a crash, and this is a place where having an unusual problem, because like often in Linux, you'll have a crash and something will restart, or you'll be able to like shell out to like the raw command line and then see what exactly is crashed and access logs while the machine's still running without the whole machine going down. It's pretty unusual to get a hard freeze on Linux unless you have a hardware problem, like a blue screen or black screen equivalent on Windows, right?
Like, yeah, so some sort of like low level BIOS driver issue, something.
Yeah, something that makes the whole machine be in a position where you have to reboot. Usually you can hit Control-Alt F2, which switches you over to a terminal, like just a raw terminal window. And then you can open up your list of processes. And you can see, oh, Xorg is hung. Here's what I'll kill Xorg, and then Xorg restarts, and then you're back at your GUI again, right? This wasn't that. This was just playing a video in Firefox while I was using my laptop. The entire computer would freeze up, and the only way I could get it to do anything was by long pressing the power button, which, like I said,
is like the nuclear option for resetting a laptop.
Yeah. Well, and it's an unusual problem to have in Linux. Usually that indicates some sort of hardware problem or something like that.
But before you go further, I think you should probably remind people what the hardware is that you're running on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm running on an Asus ZenBook S, which is the Lunar Lake ZenBook that they released last year. It's a 13 or 14 inch laptop.
I think it's 14.
14.
That's 14. Yeah.
I was shocked at how well it was supported by Cache out of the box. I haven't really had to do anything. We talked about it last week, what I did to set it up. But so it's modern hardware. It runs well. I haven't had stability problems on other operating systems. So I was surprised. The fault I was suspect of Cache. And when I dug into it a little bit, well, first off, it's hard, but because you don't expect Linux to fail like this, there's not really a mechanism like there is in Windows for when this type of failure happens. So, for example, when Windows fails like this, it throws a blue screen and you get some sort of message that says kernel security fault or, alt IRQ, or there's some sort of message that you can then Google, and there's logs that you can dig into. Or debug dumps actually in the Windows folder that you could dig into, and we talked with Mikey about this on the PCWorld channel a few months ago.
Yeah, Mike Dinsiglio, who's a longtime Linux user and a security expert.
Yeah, but we talked about how you troubleshoot crashes on Windows, and there's a easy to follow process because it happens all the time. Microsoft expects it to happen, so they provide tools that make it relatively easy for people to troubleshoot and figure out if it's hardware problem, software problem, bad driver, whatever it happens to be. Because Linux doesn't usually crash like this, there's not a lot of, most of the debugging for this kind of crash is you have to switch to that terminal and then open up a log that's live, because the next time you reboot the system, that log is going to get overwritten with the information from the current boot, unless you do some stuff to make that not happen. I ended up getting a recommendation from someone that was like, oh yeah, this is a problem with Firefox and the version of the kernel that's in Cache that's running right now. And if you either use a different version of Firefox, either inside a Flatpak, or you update Cache, it's probably going to just fix itself. So that's what I did to fix the problem.
Oh, really?
However,
so it was just an outdated version of Firefox?
No, it was a bug in the version of Firefox so it was because I was running Firefox from the core Cache repos instead of in the Flatpak container. We talked about how those Flatpaks are kind of containerized.
Yeah. And because each one treats itself differently.
Yeah. And it was because the version of Firefox I had was trying to interact with the video acceleration or something in the kernel, and it was having basically there are some versions of the 6.15 I think kernel that have problems with variable refresh rate displays on AMD hardware that are especially common when you're playing video or under high load.
Interesting.
So updating the kernel solved the problem basically, and updating the version of Firefox at the same time. The bug was fixed in two places simultaneously. I haven't had it since, and it's been almost 2 weeks now.
Oh, okay. Well, and how do you update the kernel, or how did you?
You just run. There's a button in the Welcome to Cache app that launches when you start the thing that says, "Hey, do you want to update Cache?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay." And I hit that button, and then it downloaded some stuff from Pacman from the main system repos.
Oh, okay.
But the secondary impact of this crash was that Btrfs, which is the file system that Cache defaults to and that I chose for my main partition, was showing as unclean, which meant that when it booted, it thought that the file system was corrupted, and the OS was like, hey, I'm not going to mount this, because if I mount this, it could make the corruption worse or cause you some downstream consequences. So you have to look at this and figure out how to fix this. And it isn't like Windows, where Windows says, hey, we've detected errors in your file system. Do you want us to run check disk on this? And you're like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. This is like it dumps you out to this thing called the emergency shell. And because that kind of crash is pretty rare again, I had to really dig to find troubleshooting ways to fix this that didn't involve having a live install thumb drive. So if I had so the emergency shell doesn't have the Btrfs file tools built into it because it's part of the kernel, right? Btrfs is the recovery tools are not part of that emergency shell, because the emergency shell has to inherently be very small. So I had to, the correct way to fix this is to boot off of a live install CD, a thumb drive, and then run the Btrfs recovery tool on the partition that's affected. So you run like an ls-blk, which lists all the block drive, all your drives, basically all your partitions. And then you run sudo butterfs, btrfs space rescue space 0-log/ and then a path to the partition that's affected. So it's like /dev/nvme 0, whatever, yada, yada. I didn't have a live install thumb drive with me, and this was the computer I would usually use to get the live install thumb drive.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how to do it without doing that. And it ended up being a real pain in the butt.
I mean, but so I guess to back up real quick, you were still able to get into Windows?
Windows is fine.
Yeah, Windows is fine. This isn't. Yeah. This is just on the other partition.
I'm trying real hard not to use Windows on that laptop unless I really, really have to. So when I had the crash during a Full Nerd episode a few weeks ago, I switched over to Windows so I could keep watching chat. That's really the only time I've had to switch over to Windows since I started running Cache on this laptop at this point.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So anyway, it was a pain in the butt. The TLDR for that is I'm now just leaving in my bag a thumb drive with a Cache live install on it all the time. Because it would have been a 5-minute fix had it not been for that. If I had that.
Because it's easier to troubleshoot from the live install.
Yeah. Well, because the live install has a full operating system installed, whereas the emergency shell is just like this little thing that can live in the kernel that has like basic kernel commands and nothing else.
Okay. But you were able to do it.
I was able to do it. It's back up and running. I didn't have to do a reinstall or anything weird. I just fixed it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that's it. That's my homework. Try not to have hard crashes on Linux is my advice. That's your best policy, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be nice. Also, we've talked about this before, but it is funny how Windows is almost so resilient because they assume there's always going to be a bunch of crashes.
This is the thing Gordon always used to say is when you build it, when you know it's a piece of crap, then you build it knowing that and everything works out and it's much better result than if you expect it to never fail and then it does. Yeah. It's a Douglas Adams thing too, right? The difference between a machine that what is it? The difference between a machine that can't fail and one that will fail is that when the one that can't fail does, it's catastrophic. So yeah, lesson learned.
Nice.
What was your homework last week? What did you do, Adam?
Oh man, yeah. So my homework was way more simple. Number one, I wanted to get Cache up and running on this other laptop. We'll get into that, which would have led to trying out some more games. I still have the System 76 laptop. I've been using that mainly, especially when we're in the office. But it's Arrow Lake based. It is not it's not traditionally a gaming laptop. It's not really, doesn't have a beefy iGPU, and yeah, it's just not marketed that way anyway. Not that you can't do some really lightweight gaming on there, but I have this HP ZBook Ultra HP ZBook Ultra G1A. So it's Strix Halo. So it's a Ryzen, Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 Pro, something like that. So the top end of the Strix Halo chipset, which does have a really good integrated iGPU. It's an Radeon 8060S, which a lot of people are saying is equivalent to like a 4060.
Holy cow!
RTX
really?
4060. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, that's where I want to do some gaming on because it's got those kind of chops. Yeah. The other ones, the other two, like you, I kind of need to punt to next week because I ran into other problems. But Excel and then just kind of exploring some more fun tools was my other homework. But yeah, essentially this whole week was taken up by Cache. Yeah, so I went through the steps. You kind of told me, how to get up and running. And first off was to set up a Ventoy disk or a thumb drive, which I did. It was pretty straightforward. I read through the documentation. I was a little confused because then after it was installed, I was like, okay, cool. I opened up the folder on Windows and the Ventoy folder, and it was just empty. And I was like, okay, well, where do I put my ISOs? And then I was like, oh, I guess I just put them in here.
ISOs go there, yeah.
Yeah,
I was just say for folks who don't know, Ventoy is basically lets you turn a bootable thumb drive into a bootable thumb drive, where it scans a folder for ISOs that are bootable and just gives you a boot menu that lets you choose between all of these ISOs. So you don't have to like burn your disk with Rufus or Belina Etch or DD or something like that.
Yeah, really cool. And now, like you, I have one that I carry around all the time, and I have different ISOs in here, which we'll talk about as well. And so I was like, okay, cool. So my next step, I want to get cachy. So I popped over to Level 1 Techs, friend of the show, Wendell. He had the same laptop, and he's done a lot of testing with the Strix Halo chip already on a bunch of different devices. So like the Framework desktop. There was something else that he did it on. I can't remember off the top of my head, but essentially he was like, okay, I have a step-by-step tutorial on like how to set it up for my needs, and this specifically on this HP laptop. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna follow Wendell's thing. Wendell, if you don't know, Wendell is a god among men. I don't know.
He's an enormous nerd too.
Like
we're full nerds.
Man.
He's like the nerd. He's gone all way beyond. Yeah.
I love Wendell. I can listen to him talk, but like he knows like everything about everything, and if he doesn't, he'll learn it really quick. So anyway, I was like, oh, I'm curious to see like how well his documentation is. So I looked up the version of the OS that he had installed in there. I went to the website, which he had linked out to, which was, I don't remember the exact URL, but it was like archlinux.org or something like that. I can't remember. And went to go download, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. This is my first time downloading a repo, and it was just like this huge list of like, where do you want to do it? You want to torrent? You want to, here are all the places sharing it. Don't forget to run checksums to make sure, because people could mess this up, and you could get bad security risks. I was like, oh goodness, this is a lot of choice on how to download it.
Yeah.
So I was a little scared, but I did it. I downloaded. Yes.
You were trying to install Cachy, and you went to archlinux.org to download Cachy. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's I'm good. Continue.
Yeah. So I think probably other people might have noticed this as well. So I plugged it in and was like, okay, cool. And we had talked about Cachy before, and I'd asked if there was a graphical user interface to go through the install stuff. And you're like, oh yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I can do this. So I sat down on the couch. My wife was watching a movie, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm installing Linux. And so, and she's like,
did you yell hack the planet at that point? And like,
no, it was more like the Key and Peele skit, where he's like sweating bullets kind of thing. And I was just like sitting here. I was like, I can do this. I can install Linux. This is going to be fine. What's the worst that can happen? So I disabled secure boot, did a couple other things to make sure I could get into it, mounted into the drive, saw the Ventoy thing pop up, and it said, Arch, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. That's the one. I hit enter, it boots into it, and it's pretty much just a command line. It just stopped. I didn't see any graphic stuff. It was just a command line. And I was like, okay, I can do this. So I went over to the website, started following the documentation. One of the first steps was to connect to the internet. So I don't remember the process off the top of my head, but I was following the step-by-step guides. I connected to the Wi-Fi, just all from the command line. And and then once I connected, I went back out to the root and pinged, like they gave us an example of like ping archlinux.org or whatever. And I did. And I was just sitting there. I was just like, woohoo, I connected to the internet through the command line. This is great. And then I went to hit escape and enter. None of that stopped the ping. And I was like, oh no, I don't know how to stop a ping. So I had to Google how to stop a ping. And then the next step was about partitioning.
Control C, by the way.
I know. Yeah. I found out for Control C stopped the ping. Yeah. Or it stops everything running, right?
It kills the current active process on the command line. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know that one now for sure. And so I knew that the partitioning is where Wendell's guide picked up at. So I went over to Wendell's guide, and immediately just my eyes glazed over, and it was just a lot of stuff. And I was like, I literally just noped out. I was like, okay, you know what? I connected to the internet through the command line. I cannot do this. And so I came in the next day. I think we were filming the Full Nerd. I think it was a Tuesday, and I was just like, "Hey, Will, dude, you lied to me, man. Cache, you can't. There's no GUI install on this." And you were like, "What?"
Yeah, like, what the hell have you done?
I was like, "Nah, dude, it was just a command line." And I popped. I said, "Nope, done. I need Will's help here. I need somebody to hold my hand." And I can't remember how we got around to it, but yeah, then we realized I downloaded Arch. I went to hard mode. I went all the way to Arch, which Cache is a version of Arch, but I went to actual Arch Linux.
Yeah. So what it's funny. One of the solutions for the problem we're going to talk about in a minute is like when you're working inside the same distribution framework, you could download Arch, install Arch, get it all ready to go. And then you could switch the repos to the Cache repos and do an update and pull down the newer Cache versions of all the software. And that's a perfectly cromulent way to update to like install a version of Linux if you want. Like there would be no downsides to doing it that way, which sounds like a nightmare coming from Windows world. Cause like we always try to if you had Windows 98 and you wanted to go to Windows XP, you didn't upgrade your Windows 98 install unless you wanted pain and suffering to be part of your life. You would back up your stuff, wipe that hard drive, and then put Windows XP on. So anyway,
I mean, I still do that for current version of Windows. Like I wouldn't in place upgrade from Windows 10 to 11 personally.
So anyway.
But yeah, so step one, I downloaded the wrong distro.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Good job, Adam. Nailed it. But I do at least feel better about being able to connect to the internet from a command line. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Is the command, you've been scared of the command line up until this. Like, are you feeling a little more confident there? Okay.
No. Well, because I continually, fat finger things and do misspellings. Most of the time, it just tells me like, oh, that's not a command. Dude, you got it wrong. But I don't know, like, it's a lot of Googling because there's a lot of command line stuff. And I was just like, what the heck? So like learning some of this has just been like mind boggling. I don't understand how people are able to pull some of this stuff out of their head, but I guess it's just something, if you use it all the time, then you just memorize all the commands.
It's muscle memory. The other thing I was going to say is there's a version of installing Cache on your laptop using Wendell's, like cherry picking the bits of stuff that you need for Arch out of Wendell's guide. Like he has a section about getting secure boot working right and all of those things. And because those distros are very similar, once you're more comfortable, you'll be able to cherry pick the bits and pieces that you want out of different guides. It's something that I like when I'm doing, because I do like my Linux expertise is a lot of server stuff. So I do a lot of command line and like setting up a service to run in the background and then interacting with it through a web interface like you do with Docker Portainer or something like that. And you very quickly learn how to cherry pick different bits out, which we'll talk about that in a little bit because there's like once you start doing that, it's great and it's a really good skill. But also, if you ever have to recreate that, you need to like. It's really hard to recreate those kind of, hey, I took 3 different how-tos and munged them up together in my head to do the thing that I wanted to do. And somehow it worked and now it's broken. And how do I fix this again? I have no idea. So,
yeah, well, once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I can do this again. Downloaded Cache from the Cache website, Cache OS.
Yeah.
And put it on Ventoy, booted up into it and saw that, it had 2 options, Arch and Cache, launched into Cache, and then went through some installation. Did we do that together? I can't remember.
Yeah, we were sitting at the
first
desk
one together
in the studio doing that.
So we did have a couple weird hangups where the installer would just like hang part of the way through.
Was it just the installer? It was the whole GUI actually. So like you couldn't open the Cache menu or anything because the Cache installer operates inside a live thumb drive environment. So you boot, it's a fully functioning version of the OS, but you can like open Firefox, you can connect to the network, all of that stuff in.
Which, I mean, once I was in there, I was able to it was fairly easy to just poke around and be like, oh, okay, how do I scale the UI? How do I connect to the internet? Even the installer tells you want to connect to the internet before you go through that installation process. So yeah, even though it hung a couple times, I actually did get one successful. And I was like, okay, cool. It installed. I rebooted, took out the thumb drive. It went into cache, and I think you had told me like immediately make sure you update all of the system stuff. I think hold on. I think I know it's sudo apt upgrade or update.
Apt is for Debian based stuff.
See, yeah, and then so I've been using the System 70. Yeah. So that's the other weird thing. I've been using the System 76 thing, and I'm so used to the sudo apt thing that like then yes, like I was just like, wait, it's sudo pacman. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now I got to know that. And then what I think it was -SYU, or maybe it's just capital S. I can't remember. But so essentially just updating the whole like package from the repo, I guess.
But it pulls a list of updated packages and then does them. It's interesting to me because that cache installer requires internet. I assumed it would do that as part of the install process, but it seemed to not. Although there was a fair lag between when I installed and when I ran the update, so it may be better now. I don't know.
No, you
pulled stuff down.
Yeah. So side note, so we got it installed. I started poking around in it, started messing with stuff. This is where I really got into talking with the folks over on our Discord, which there were some, I do want to shout out some folks, 59 Smoke, Spectre, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but Nonkin. Yes. Yeah. Like I was just sitting there late at night being like, oh, hey, what's this? Oh, hey, how do I do this? And like, they were playing along. They're having fun. One of the things that we were messing around with was I was having a hard time with the look and feel of it. I kind of liked it, but it was also just felt very utilitarian. I don't know. And I, realized that, okay, what I'm looking at is kind of the difference between KDE and Gnome, or Gnome, or how
Gnome is how I would say it, but I'm not maybe a reliable pronunciation source.
Yeah. Who knows? Please. That's part of my next homework. Figure out how to pronounce Gnome. Please write in, and let us know. 'Cause I want to know. I'm just going to call it Gnome.
The common wisdom is always that Gnome is the more Mac-ish one and that KDE is the more Windowsy one.
Yeah, well, so what I did was like, oh, okay, well, how do can I get Gnome on cache? And I looked it up and it was like, put in this command line. I don't remember what it is, but essentially I downloaded it. And then I went over to Discord and was like, then I asked over there, I should have asked first over on Discord, and I was like, hey, can you install Gnome at the same time as KDE? And like I got a really wide range. Like there were some people that are like, no, I always, if you're going to do that, do a fresh install and pick one or the other, which to be fair, the cache install does let you select at the beginning, but we had picked KDE Plasma because that's the one it defaulted to. So, and then some people were like, no, I install a bunch of them at the same time and just let it rip, and switch to my heart's content. Have you tried?
So
like, you're on KDE.
I'm on KDE Plasma. Yeah. My general policy, because it's already hard enough finding support and help with Linux stuff, is that I generally run the defaults on stuff like that. So like if I'm running an OS that defaults to KDE Plasma, I'm going to run KDE Plasma. Because it's not just there's also what's the Windows metaphor for this? It's like the Windows widgets draw based on whether you have the KDE version or the GNOME version or whatever.
Yeah.
And there can be some weird downstream consequences. It's probably fine. And given where you are in your Linux journey, my guess is you're going to nuke and pave a couple of times before you settle on anything for real. So it's not that big a deal. But it is definitely like my feeling is run the defaults for the distro you're running. And if you want to do something else, pick a distro that uses the thing that you want as the default rather than wedging. And just to be clear, people are screaming at their radios right now. This is a preference, and this is my preference because I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. So I'm trying to minimize the hassle I'm going to have getting help not necessarily. This is
Which makes sense.
this is the right way to do this advice. This is what I do to make it easier for me to maintain a working machine. Advice.
Which makes sense. Yeah. Well, and you're right. I kind of knew going in, like that's why I just kind of wung it, because I was like, you know what, I'm probably gonna screw something up anyway. So yeah, I just installed it in place, and then when you're at the login screen, there's like a menu you can pick to whatever desktop environment to go into, which I did ask what DE meant. So a lot of people were using DE in the
desktop environment, you mean?
Yeah. So it, like as a Windows person, it's like usually Windows 11 is pretty much Windows 11. That's what you get. But it was actually kind of cool to be like, oh wow, I can launch into like a completely different looking desktop and configure it in completely different ways. So that was actually kind of fun. One of the people in Discord did mention that what they like to do is have separate user accounts. So essentially, if they want to do another desktop environment, they create a second user account. So each user account is tied to a different desktop environment, if that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. And then your home folders won't get munged up with a bunch of GNOME stuff in your KDE folders. Like this isn't like Reese's Cups where mixing them together is going to make them better. You don't want those streams to cross, but the separate user accounts make sense because then you'll have different home folders. And since everything works out of the home folder, yeah, that's a good call out.
Yeah. So, and I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly who said that. It was probably one of those guys or there's another guy who's been helpful over there, Nouty, Nouty. So thank you to all over there. But also when I Googled it, I saw a lot of different use cases too. So definitely write in, please let me know what you do, to try that out. Cause I'm very much in the trying phase where I kind of want to try a bunch of different stuff and
which one did you prefer, Adam? Mac or Windows?
So it was the one I had initially downloaded there was the version of GNOME was Wayland.
Wayland is the window renderer, I think, but I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. It was just that's what the tag was on the thing. I don't know like how close that is to other versions of GNOME. The only other reference I had was Pop! OS, I believe, uses a version of GNOME. Like it kind of looked similar in a lot of ways, especially like the system preferences and things like that. So I'm going to assume that they're similar.
Sorry, I explained that badly. Wayland is the thing that lets Windows communicate with other Windows. It's like the back-end server infrastructure that the GUI stuff draws on top of. So GNOME is the thing that draws the Windows. Wayland replaces Xorg, which is the thing that says, okay, here are the rules about Windows and how they draw and where they connect and all that stuff.
Okay.
Everything's clients and servers in Linux, it turns out.
Well, yeah, and I was definitely... after doing that and messing around, I was like doing a bunch of different stuff. I was also experimenting with the scaling because like the GNOME version was like the scaling options were 100%, 200%, and 300%. And I was like, I'm more of like 150%, 175% kind of guy. And I was just like, but somebody was like, oh, you can turn on the experimental feature and it'll do some experimental scaling and. So I started to like see some weird cracks. I did have a couple hangups or like things were like freezing for a little bit. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I just kept using it. The next thing I did was go back to the CachyOS thing, the website to see if they had any other recommendations of like post installation, which they did. It was very helpful. Some of them I didn't think I needed to do because they were describing things that was like I don't have an example, but it was like describing things that I was like, I'm not a developer.
Building
doing
a dev
code
environment
stuff
or whatever you don't need.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't think I need to do that. But they had a huge tutorial on how to enable gaming stuff. So essentially, it was like, hey, you need to download these packages for Proton. You need to make sure you have the right Proton version picked in Steam after you download that. So that you let the OS handle the what's the word shader compiling and things like that rather than Steam. So like I went through that and it was, for me as somebody who's scared of the command line, it was very straightforward. And like it was a lot of steps, but like I was able to get through it and was like, okay. I mean, unfortunately, I ran into so many issues otherwise that I didn't get a chance to actually try any games on it. I can't report on any of that stuff, but I was happy with the documentation over on CachyOS.
So my experience on getting games going on Cachy, and I'm on that Lunar Lake machine, so I've played like The Farmer's Replaced and Kaizen Factory, the Kaizen Factory game that came out a couple months ago from the former Zectronics folks. Mm-hmm. I just hit the button in the Welcome to Cachy pop-up app that says, hey, do you want to install Proton and Steam and all the gaming stuff? Mm-hmm. And then I just let it ride from there, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I did wonder, I was like, man, am I overcomplicating it? Should I not have looked at the documentation and went through there and just tried to go straight into it? I'm going to do that on something else. So yeah, we'll see. But so yeah, once again,
but so you have a working Cachy Linux machine on that HP, right?
No. I started to have so many issues that it just was like, okay, this isn't right, to the point where even when I rebooted, it was like throwing errors, or like it would hang on the login screen. Ugh. And I was just like, okay, something is really, really mucked up here. And so essentially I came in with that laptop and was like, Will, I need you to look at this, because mm-hmm. This is not working, which I think at that point at that point I was like, okay, you know what? I've messed around. I'm just going to wipe and start fresh again.
That's where you and then you brought me in after you wiped it, if I recall.
Yeah. So then, I was sitting there and like, I tried to wipe and reinstall like a handful of times, and each time the installer would hang it somewhere different. It was, and it was consistently, it was usually at a specific spot in the install, or at the end it would say, hey, we didn't install, here's an error of why we didn't install, and then the whole graphical interface would hang, and I would just pretty much have to hard lock. And I was like, I was never able to get it successfully install again. So then I brought it into you, and I was like, dude, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
So the recommendation I posted on the Cachy forums, and like I said, there was another user there who I won't out because they don't know who we are, and I don't want to out anyone. But they specifically said, they gave some troubleshooting tips. They suggested that it might be the variable refresh rate with AMD on that particular version of the kernel that's part of the Cachy installer right now. And then they also gave some tips, since you can get to the terminal with Control Alt F2 to see if you can switch sessions and kill the things that like reset the thing that's hanging so that the GUI comes back to life and the install completes normally. I think that the other option was to install the LTS version of the kernel. I think, honestly, my TLDR on this is that Strix Halo laptop is like, what, a month or 6 weeks old at this point?
No, it's a number of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's old by Windows standards and impossibly new by Linux standards, even in the world of Cachy, where they live on impossibly new. So, like, when I was setting up the Lunar Lake laptop, which is a year old, when I was doing the Cachy install, I was like, is this too new? Should I have gone into the drawer and grabbed an old ThinkBook from like 2019 just so that this works and all the stuff is well supported and all that? The answer was, it turns out no. The ASUS ZenBook was pretty well supported out of the box. But like, you have to, as a hardware guy, like, we're both hardware guys these days. The newer your hardware, the more problems you're going to have on Linux typically. And I think that's the wall you're hitting. Like, trying to get a brand new, there's a reason that guide that Wendell did for this laptop and how to get it running on Arch is popular on his site. And it's because it's a hard thing to do. So,
and if you know Wendell, you know he likes hard mode. He just like rubs his hands. He's like, oh yeah, here we go. He's a special kind of crazy.
And also the version, like they update the Cachy installer, it seems like every month or two. So the version that you were using to install Cachy on that laptop is from, I think, mid-June, which means that those packages came in. Like, if most likely the version of the kernel that's in that is from like May or June or something like that at the absolute latest. So like that's why when you say it's 3 months old, it's been around for a while. it actually isn't that long a time because stuff has to filter through the chain. It has to filter through the Arch process and then get imported into Cache, and then like they have to do their stuff to it, and like it takes a while. So the solution to your how do I install Cache on this thing reliably is, it seems like I would try the adaptive refresh rate stuff, turning that off. I think you can turn that off in the BIOS probably. See if that helps. And then if not, then the hard way to do this is to install Arch using Wendell's guide and then shift it over to Cache once it's installed. But it seems like a pretty enormous pain in the butt for like maybe this is an Ubuntu outing is, I guess, where the other option.
Which I did some people in Discord were like, well, why are you trying to do Cache again? And I was like, well, because like I know Wendell got Arch to work on this laptop. So, like I guess my initial thought was to go there. But yeah, I did have a couple of people in Discord be like, no, actually Strix Halo does have support in, in some other, the distro. Oh, Fedora was one of them.
Fedora is one of them
you should
too,
try Fedora. And I was like, okay, so I did put Fedora on there. And yeah, so after I saw you and we did some testing and was like, it was still kind of not great. Like I did I did the recovery thing from the actual BIOS. The recovery image just did a complete wipe of the system.
Specifically because we were worried that the boot partitions shared between Windows and Linux because the partially failed installs had potentially left weird stuff in the boot partition, the EFI partition. We were worried that there were going to be downstream consequences from that.
Yeah, and even people in our Discord were saying it's probably a full EFI partition, and it's just like, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to wipe the whole thing, start fresh. So I installed Windows, and then went through that process again, but I still kept encountering errors. And so, and then, so I loaded up Fedora, same thing. It kept hanging, which side note, Fedora, I realized that, what is it? What did we put on the RGLAX?
Bazite.
Bazite. Bazite is a version of Fedora. Yeah, because I saw that install and I was like, oh, this looks familiar. Oh, I did that when we did Bazite on the RGLAX. So I tried that. I even tried Ubuntu. Same thing. It just kept locking. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing something wrong here. Oh, you know what? The
installer was locking on those other distros?
All of them. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so something's definitely wrong with the hardware, or at least it felt, or the way that it's configured, or something. So I went into the BIOS, and there actually does have a live BIOS update tool in there that it'll ping HP.com servers, check the BIOS version over the network, and they had a BIOS rollback version. Which it marked as like an update kind of thing. So I rolled back a BIOS version and then reinstalled that BIOS for the newest one. I think it's like 1.0.3 or something like that. I can't remember. And then did the Windows recovery tool, or the boot recovery tool kind of thing to do another completely clean wipe of the drive. And then, do you remember how when we were in the BIOS, one of the things that Wendell showed off was the clear the secure boot keys was grayed out. We couldn't do it. It finally showed up. So then I was able to go in, click that box to clear all the secure boot keys, and turned it off. Installed Windows, and just this morning, I went in, I installed Cache, 0 problems. I am up and running on Cache. And I did look in the BIOS about the VR thing. There was no toggle in the BIOS for that thing. And so, not only that, all morning, like I have it right over here, I've been letting it go to sleep intentionally and then waking it up, see if it wakes up okay. I've rebooted it multiple times. I mean, I haven't really done anything other than install and update.
That's good though.
But and I was like, okay, this feels like good news. I think it was either the EFI partition stuff or the secure boot stuff. Maybe we didn't fully clear the secure boot keys.
I don't think either of those. Like the secure boot would have thrown an error and just not let you do anything. It wouldn't have let you boot. The EFI thing. Let's maybe who knows? Corrupted BIOS. I think you just did the equivalent of running SFC scan now on this
I was
laptop.
very much stabbing in the air, but the whole BIOS rollback and then upgrade again was just like, for me, just like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make sure the BIOS part of it is clean and fresh.
Yeah.
So I think something about the BIOS obviously is what's going on. So I guess we'll see. So now, theoretically, I have a working version of Cache.
Wild.
I'm going to try to continue to use it. Not only that, I guess we'll talk about the homework for next week. So yeah, that was my Cache experience. So I haven't gone into any gaming yet. Haven't done anything like that. So my week has mostly just been that kind of stuff.
Well, but you did use the System 76 laptop at
yes,
for work
this
stuff,
whole time
right?
I've been using the System 76 laptop, which has been running like a champ. And I have had to go back and forth between Windows and Pop OS.
How are you finding Pop? Are you enjoying? Are you finding your way around?
I am. Yeah. No, I mean it's actually pretty damn straightforward. Like I would say the OS, and now that I've kind of understood a little bit differences between like KDE versus Gnome, where KDE like is definitely just like seems to be very utilitarian. Like, hey, here you get all these tools, have fun. This at least Pop OS is a lot more handholdy kind of stuff, and like I am finding some of the customization options like pretty lacking. Like I said, the scaling thing kind of still bugs me. But for the most part, yeah, I'm able to. I mean, and to be fair, when I'm in there, I'm not doing a ton of like crazy stuff. I have Slack, I have Discord, I have Google Chrome set up on that. So like a lot of stuff like that. Mission Center for all the task manager kind of stuff I'm looking at. And then pretty much right now, the only thing I'm going over to the other side for that is when I need access to full fat Excel so that I can go in and like print charts. So that's when I go into the Windows side of it. But yeah, so yeah, no, as I was dealing with Cache, you're right. I continued to use the Pop OS stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess that pretty much is my homework. But I do have like, I think we should quickly talk about just some quick high level random things that I think would be kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see. Let me go back down here. You have a couple on here.
Yeah.
The update stuff.
So like one of the things I wanted to talk about just generally is that my perception on Linux machines coming from server side is that generally like a whole system update is something I do thoughtfully versus with Windows, where when it's like, hey, you have an update, you just hit the button and it does its thing. I often will hold off. If things are working and they aren't broke, I won't try to fix them by doing an update because most of my stuff lives behind a couple of firewalls, and B, so I'm less concerned about security updates. Like I don't have the random internet is not allowed to hit any of the Linux servers I maintain, right? Everything either runs through a VPN to access from if I'm accessing from outside the house, or it lives inside the firewall, and thus they're relatively low risk as these things go. Now, if Mikey's listening, he's screaming at his radio right now, so I apologize, Mikey. But I don't like before I hit that, hey, I'm going to update everything on this Cache machine. I was like, I feel not super confident that I'm not going to break something important here with the way those kind of updates often go in my experience. That's kind of I just wanted to talk to you about that because I know you tend to hit the update button and you probably like want to consider it a little bit more here than you have in the past on Windows.
Yeah, well, and definitely as I was looking through this laptop stuff, there was a lot of people who were giving updates, or not just even that laptop. I've been setting up this other Asus one, and yeah, a lot of the people who are like updating are like, oh, you know what? They pushed a kernel update that broke something, but then that now there's a point revision to update it again. So yeah, like that Cache stuff. Also, if I understand it correctly, like those kind of upgrades, you have to push independently, right? You have to go into the console and like completely get the new kernel package stuff, right?
Well, so there's
there's
different levels of updates, and you choose which level of update you want. Like there's update, there's upgrade, there's all sorts. I'm more familiar with Debian in this regard because like you can do a system upgrade, or with Debian you can move from Debian has branches. There's SID, which is experimental. There's stable, and then there's like an LTS branch usually, which is
like long-term
support. And you can choose to move from like for example, my server in the garage is going to have to move from the old LTS branch soon because it's about to time out, and I need to move it to the next LTS branch. And I'll do that by changing some flags on the repos and then running an upgrade all, and it'll just pull down all the packages. But because those long-term support branches are pretty stable, it's less likely that I'll say get a version of the kernel that conflicts with the version of Plex I have installed, or like doesn't have adequate support for hardware accelerated transcode or something that I use every day on that machine. When you're running on a more cutting edge distro like Cashy, you do want to be more deliberate about when you pull new kernel versions. Like there's no reason to update your kernel unless there's something in the new kernel that you need that your old one doesn't have, or that it's no longer getting support, right?
It makes sense.
Yeah. So it's think about a kernel update as like a Windows moving from Windows 10 to Windows 7 to Windows 10, or Windows 10 to, well, I mean, not really Windows 10 to 11 because it's kind of the same kernel, but like a significant Windows upgrade rather than something you might do just by pressing Windows Update.
Okay. That makes sense. And I've seen the two dichotomies because, you know, when I was using Cashy a little bit, it was like, oh, you know, you gotta pull these packages, install it. It's very like through the command line. I mean, maybe you can do it through the
there's a button in the OS too that you can hit, but the command line, you like doing that stuff in the command line for the big upgrades is what you want to do probably.
Yeah. Well, and on the Pop! OS laptop, when I would boot it up, the Pop Shop would give me a notification. Oh, you have some updates, and you know, some of them are app updates, but then they have main Pop! OS ones, which I go in there and I look at the details just to see, okay, what do they consider like, you know, Pop! OS updates? Some of them are app specific. I think specifically to, you know, their version of Pop! OS. But then, yeah, some of them are like more general kernel kind of things. And that's just a one-step update. Like that felt a lot more like Windows to me. And also, but I think the difference is Pop! OS is very much LTS, if I understand. That it's like, hey, you know what? We're not going to push anything until it is like fully vetted, fully tested. Like there, I feel okay just hitting the update and letting it rip versus Cashy.
They're very conservative, is my understanding with Pop! OS. And just to be clear, generally speaking, for people who aren't like, the reason Cashy is the way it is because they support cutting edge hardware, right? The reason Pop! OS is the way it is because they support people who want like a Windows-ish experience on their hardware, on the hardware they sell. And this is a place that choice makes sense, but you just need to be aware going in what that choice is. Now, this is also made complicated by the fact that like Pacman or apt or whatever you use for your package management on your distro also does all the updates for the other software on your distro, like, you know, Firefox and anything that lives outside of a Flatpak or a Snap or something like that. That's like a containerized software distribution format. So if you need to update whatever on your machine, then you're going to use Pacman for that as well. But the thing to know is you have to opt in to those big upgrades, and you can update the packages generally relatively safely. Although, like I said, my general policy on Linux machines is if it's working and I don't need a new feature that's rolled out in a new update, don't worry about it. Just leave it where it is.
Okay.
As we start talking about playing games on Linux, my bet is that that's going to change because we'll want those newer driver packages and stuff like that. So the other thing is we touched this a little bit before, but when you figure out something that was hard to do, documenting that for future you is incredibly important. So if you, for example, when I figured out how to get the Windows Hello camera working on my laptop, I was a dope and didn't write it down anywhere. And now if I have to recreate that, I got to go through and redo the entire process again. Oops. So, yeah. So like set up a Notion, make a folder full of markdown files, like use simple note, have a bucket of places that you put searchable text that tell future you how you made something cool work, so that you don't have to figure it out in the future. Less important right now because you're just starting out, and like I said, you're still in kind of this cachey install might hold. You might still be in nuke and pave territory for a little bit. We don't know.
Oh, I definitely feel like I'm in at any point. Well, because here's the other thing, and this is the last point, major point I want to talk about. Is I have been distro hopping. Like I through this process, I've been installing other operating systems. Lenovo was kind enough to send over a couple of laptops so that they come pre-configured with Ubuntu. Ubuntu.
No, and just Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
No, you're putting an M between the first U and the B. It's okay. Ubuntu, not Ubuntu. Yeah.
Ubuntu. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so the Lenovo ones had pre-installed Ubuntu
Nailed it.
with Gnome.
Gnome, you mean?
If I had Gnome, whatever, if I had to guess. So I've messed around a little bit with that. I actually, like I said, the Fedora, what was the other? There was one more that I tried. Oh, Mint. I did try to install Mint. Okay. And I actually kind of liked the look of it. So that's something I want to, but I'm definitely like I feel like I'm in a salad bar. Like I'm touching little different things and be like, you know what? I'm going to try a little bit of that.
You want a little baby corn? We got baby corn.
Like I'm very much shopping around to figure out, okay, well, what do I want to settle on? And I think that at that point, then it's like, okay, start fresh again and, go forward. So I'm very much in the tasting phase, and it's fun. It really is fun to mess around with this stuff. Like I've gotten over that hurdle of like scared to install now that I've tried to install things so many times before, it's been kind of exciting.
And like you're not used to being presented with this much choice.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Yeah,
but I'm still also in a spot where, and I think I said this before, I'm still also in a spot that I'm like, okay, well, what is the difference between what? Am I looking at the difference between KDE versus Gnome? Am I looking at the difference between Linux kernel stuff? Am I looking at the difference between distros? Like I'm still. But I feel like I'm slowly like starting to understand these things. Like when we went to Micro Center and we did that whole Linux interview, trying to find people who did Linux, you fed me a question. You were like, hey, ask them if they're KDE or GNOME. I had zero context
now you
of
know
what that question I was answering. Now I'm like, oh, okay. It's a desktop environment.
Which one are you now, Adam? That's the question. You still haven't answered.
Okay, yeah. So I think as I've messed around with it, I haven't fully settled on it, but I think I am a GNOME person.
Wow.
Like I kind of like how flashy and like cool it looks. Somebody on Discord, I mentioned this too, and they're like, oh, it's your Apple roots showing, and I'm like. Yeah, I kind of really did like the look of Mac OS, as much as I'm not a Mac person anymore, I did like the look of it. And yeah, it once again, it still is missing some features that I did find in KDE. Like mostly like the scaling is still like, it's so weird that there's only 3 scaling options. And
that might be a Wayland thing though, honestly.
Yeah, well, no, like even on the Lenovo Ubuntu ones that, it just has limited scaling options. I don't know. So like, I'm not fully settled on it, but just first taste, that one is definitely hitting my taste buds better. So
there we go. Okay. So we should figure out, we are recording this episode, I guess, before the first episode has really been available for long enough for people to listen to it. I think we pushed it live just before we started recording here. So we won't have listener feedback this week, but we will next week.
Well, I mean, but I have been getting a lot of feedback from, going through this stuff. So like really, if you want it, oh, here we go. Do you like this? Do you want the CachyOS version of giving us feedback? Then you'll want to get in our Discord and like interact real time.
There you go.
Like that's where you're getting it. If you want the long-term support version of the feedback, then, you can email us actually at thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. I don't think I had that URL memorized last time, or we were confused of like, wait, do we have an email address? We do. It's thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. That is where we are fielding emails if you'd rather do it that way. But once again, the show is on YouTube. We have a comment section over there. I'll be watching. Maybe there'll be other discussions other places. But if you want the real quick
juice,
yeah, if you want the juice and like the sneak peek of what we're working on, like a week or two ahead of time, because spoilers, we are actually we do have a little bit of padding between what we're working on and when we're recording these. So
cleverly, we built a buffer.
Yeah,
but we have to figure out homework for next week because we haven't done that yet either.
Yeah, so I do have some homework. My biggest homework, which I've started already, is that I have a trip coming up. So I'm going to Germany at the beginning of September for a trade show called IFA. I'll be there for a couple of reasons, and then I'm popping down to Munich to see our editorial friends over at PCWorld, which is the German edition of PCWorld, if you did not know. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like having a laptop at a trade show for me is like mission critical. This thing needs to work, and I need to make sure the Windows version of it is like, that's my priority. Make sure I have a good solid piece of hardware with Windows running. The Linux thing will just be kind of a fun, maybe I'll try to use that. But if I hit any sort of friction, I'm back to Windows. At a trade show, I have to just go back to what I'm comfortable with. So for me, I've been trying to figure out which piece of hardware. So I have the Pop OS, the System 76 machine. I have two Lenovo systems. I think one's a T14 Gen 5, and the other one is a P1 Gen 6.
And these are like corporate laptops that they ship with Ubuntu on them.
Yes. These are corporate laptops. But fairly newish hardware.
Yeah, fancy.
So they've got Meteor Lake Intel CPUs, but the P1 has a NVIDIA. Oh goodness, like it's a pro, like
NVIDIA
a
discrete
professional
graphics though.
Yeah, discrete graphics from their professional line. And then also I do have that same Asus ZenBook S16 that you've been using, but this one has Strix Point. So AMD Ryzen AI 370HX is the processor in that. I actually did take this laptop with me last year to IFA, so I'm comfortable with it. I know how to use it. It's actually very powerful.
It's the size you like. It's a big boy.
It's the size I like. I like 16 inch. So like right now I'm like really just sitting there having to be like, okay, well, which one do I want to take with me for a Windows experience, but then which one is also going to allow me to mess around with Linux a little bit. So I think at this point it has boiled down to the Strix Halo, the HP ZBook, or this Asus ZenBook.
That sounds that's a lot of work for the week. I think locking down on one laptop that's the one you're going to take with you on the trip and getting it configured on both Windows and Linux is probably...
And make sure it's stable, right?
Yeah.
I need to make sure both are stable. So yeah, that I do want to do some gaming. Like I really do want to, like if this Cashy OS is finally stable and working, I really want to try some gaming on here. Not only because this chip is like very powerful, but like, hey, I only know gaming through like the Steam Deck and and Bazite on the ROG Ally X. So I want to do that. I think that's. I'm just gonna leave it there right now because that's very much. It's taking up a lot of mental space for me.
I'm gonna kick to EP4 this. I want you to set up a VM and run Windows in a VM on Linux because
I'm scared of that one.
That's
I'm
your
really scared of that one
for a lot of your problems. Let's see, my homework is I've had UTC versus local time desync on system clocks when I switch back and forth between Windows and Linux because Windows uses the local time on the system clock. It expects local time on the system clock, and Linux automatically expects UTC on the system clock and then converts to your local time. And there's an easy fix for this. I just got to look up what it is and do it.
Oh, that sounds weird.
I want to spend some time playing some games. The Lunar Lake is very capable. It's a nice little machine. I'll fire that up. And then I've also had a weird bug where on a cold boot, when I reboot, like coming up from sleep, it's fine. But when I reboot the computer, it often won't connect to Wi-Fi because it was saving. I think it's saving the password someplace that it doesn't have access to. And I got to figure out what the problem is. Like it's Wi-Fi is basically eternally in I can't connect mode. If I plug into Ethernet, it works. And I got to dig into that and figure out what the problem is. So. My guess is it's something stupid, and I just need to like I need to check a box someplace or something like that. Something really easy, because when I clear the password and type it in, I'm able to connect every time. So anyway, that's my homework. That's what I got this week.
Weird. Yeah. Well, like I said, give us feedback, especially on our homework stuff. If you want to help us troubleshoot in real time, there's a link in the description to the Full Nerd Discord. We have a Linux channel in there that you can go to. We're figuring out different ways to expand the Full Nerd Discord right now, because it was built off of the Full Nerd podcast, but we're trying to introduce this Dual Boot Diaries stuff in there as well. Like I said, you can email us at thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. That's where we're going to be fielding some emails. But yeah, I mean, like, the show's on the road. We're up on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, YouTube Music, all those services are on there. But if we did miss one, or if an RSS feed didn't scrape somewhere, let us know. Please ping us to get the new fresh episode in your earballs every week. So
we're not on Deezer yet. I'm sorry.
Dang it. Okay.
I know.
Well, we are on Pocket Casts. We did show up this morning. So.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I definitely am going through waves, peaks and valleys right now of some excitement and scaredness, but for the most part, I'm in. Like, okay, last thing I want to do. This might be a new segment. Because this whole thing is predicated on us trying out Linux, dual booting, continuing to use both. And then we will culminate this whole series in us deleting. But we both have to agree that we're ready to move on. We're ready to delete one of our partitions and move forward into the sunset. So I think maybe at the end of every episode we should check in. Where are you at, Will?
Look. I still got a couple of Windows things I have to do sometimes, and it's nice to have that when I need to boot over there and make a thumb drive out of nowhere when I don't remember to carry it with me. But I'm not ready to delete anything yet, Adam. Sadly, you?
Okay. No. I'm ready to keep. Well, actually, I'm ready
Windows.
to keep deleting different versions of Linux as I try to use them. But no, I am 100% still holding on to that Windows drive. No matter what, I just need to feel like, okay, worst case scenario, I'm just going to boot back to Windows and continue with my life.
So here's my question though, is if you set up a VM and for Windows and delete your main Windows partition, does that count as deleting a partition, or is that Windows in a VM? Is that still a cheater? Is that still dual booting essentially? I don't think.
Yeah. Is that dual booting?
It's not dual booting anymore, but I think
it's not dual booting. But it's still using two OSs. I would say that's not the intention. Like, I think the intention is against the spirit of this. Like, okay. I feel like we need to either be all in or all out.
Yeah, there's no middle ground here.
There's no middle ground here.
It's the year of Linux, baby.
Yeah, year of Linux 2025. Thank you, Will, for walking through this.
Thank you, Adam.
There was a lot to talk about this week. I don't think future episodes will be this long, but we're kind of in the real meat of things.
We've said that 2 weeks in a row now. Okay, also, well, for the record.
So at some point, I think we're gonna really get into the minutia of things that we're working on. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more manageable, but we'll see. Maybe people don't want it shorter. Maybe people want it longer.
People love podcasts. That's all I know.
People love podcasts. Yeah. Always be podcasting is what we say here at Dual Boot Diaries.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Tune in next week for the next episodes for Dual Boot Diaries. We will see you in the next one. Always be coding.
Bye. Always be submitting bugs.
Always be checksumming.
I never checksum.